Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Cardano and its native token ADA. Why is it performing so well? If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember to go earn interest or rewards on your ADA by staking with the ITC2 stake pool. You can find instructions on how to do so at staking.intothecryptoverse.com/Cardano. Now, one of the questions I get quite frequently over the years is, which altcoins should we be looking at? Which ones will stand the test of time? Which ones won't? Back in 2019, when we really first started talking about Cardano on the channel, which is also the same year that I launched the channel, I said that ADA is my primary hedge against Ethereum. And not that I think ADA is going to overtake Ethereum, but that I I foresaw some of the same issues occurring with the high gas fees and whatnot that we saw in 2017. And I knew that people would be looking for other solutions. With that said, I'll be honest with you, I don't see it overtaking Ethereum, but I do see it carving out its own niche in the space, and I don't see it going anywhere. But one of the interesting things is, despite how bearish the whole market has been, ADA's holding up relatively well. I mean, if you ignored this last little pump that it had, which most altcoins didn't even get at that stage, like most coins by the middle of May were already done pumping long before. If you were to ignore that pump, ADA's basically just been going sideways. So this move here sort of made it so when the dump did come, we just basically dumped back down to the levels we were at before, rather than coming here and then dumping like this, like a lot of other altcoins have done. But it still begs the question, given the current market conditions, why has it not dropped more? There's plenty of other altcoins that have dropped more. I think one of the main things, in my opinion, is, and again, this is something that we can't necessarily prove is the reason, but I'm just kind of being candid in some of my thoughts here. I've explored running validators on a lot of networks, and I think Cardano is the easiest, okay? I think it's the easiest for validators for sure, and I also think it's relatively easy for delegators as well. You just set it and forget it. And one of the things I wasn't sure about with running a validator and whatnot is, well, what's going to happen? Are people going to be offloading all of their ADA whenever Bitcoin gets bearish? Bitcoin's down 50%, and when you look at the active stake, right? When you look at the active stake in the ITC pool, you can see that it's just been going up. 6 million. These are each epoch, every 5 days or so. 6 million, 8, 14, 19, 21, 21, 23, 25, 29, 32, 36 million, 38, 41, 42, 44, 45, 45, 45. So it is calming down a little bit. But the price of Bitcoin has been bearish for 2 months now. And despite that, most people are continuing to stake. I should say that one of the reasons it has probably slowed down a little bit is because we launched ITC2 as well, because there is a saturation point at 64 million ADA, and in the future the saturation point will be 32 million ADA. So in preparation for that, we launched a second one, and you can see that one's been going up. Okay, 1 million, 1.8, 3 million, 3.67, 4, 4.89, 6.58. The current live stake 7.19 million. So, when you think about it, if people are not unstaking their ADA and instead are just continuing to either hold it or add to their stack, then it's going to reduce the sell pressure, okay? Now, the staking and unstaking is obviously not going to be enough to, say, mitigate the effects of Bitcoin, when it dropped from, say, 64K down to 29K. It's not going to mitigate the effects of that, right? We can see that ADA has in fact dropped. And if Bitcoin were to go to 20K, we know that there's a decent probability that ADA is going to be going below $1.20 again. But when you think about it, the fact that it's still trading at $1.20, which is essentially about as good as it got for a long time earlier this year, except for a few weeks where he went above it. It's actually quite remarkable. I mean, it really is quite remarkable when you think about it. And the more I personally think about the validators and the networks and whatnot, Cardano, they are really good marketers, right? I think they're really good marketers because they have these validators, and it's if you have a validator, then you obviously want to get people to delegate to the stake pools that you're running. And I think Cardano obviously knew this, and they spent a ton of time thinking about, okay, well, what's the best way to roll this out? What's the best way to keep people interested? And I mean, I think it works, right? I mean, you basically you earn interest, you get paid every 5 days. It's passive income. You don't have to restake it every few weeks. You don't have to ever think about restaking it, really. You just you stake it and you forget about it. And the general idea is, if you think that ADA is going to trend up over the next several years, which is what I think will happen, then it doesn't necessarily matter what happens in the short term, because the ADA that I'm accumulating, like I'm not the ADA that's accumulated from the interest, like I'm not looking to sell it, because what I'm using it for is, okay, ADA's worth $1 today, or $1.20, whatever. What's 20 cents among friends, right? ADA's worth $1 today. But the interest that I'm earning, I want to see the valuation of that go up over time. And if ADA goes below $1, it's fine, because I don't really plan on selling it then anyways. Like I plan on selling it much further out in the cycle, not in July of 2021. So from a fundamental perspective, when you're talking about validators and growing the network that way, it really does make a whole lot of sense. And I think that the fact that we're really not seeing a ton of people unstake, I mean, we're still, the ITC pool is still chilling at around 45 million or so. Since you're not seeing as many people unstake, and you basically assume that a lot of other pools are operating similarly, it kind of makes sense. People like it. People like earning interest. They like earning rewards. And if you can set it and forget it and just say, you know what, like I'll ride out whatever intermediate bear market we're in. We'll let it run until, a few years from now. We'll check the prices. We'll take inventory then. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. So, you essentially have a project that has made it so that, that people can earn interest relatively seamlessly. It's relatively easy to set up a validator. I know that there's a lot of small stake pool operators out there, and they do struggle sometimes to meet the thresholds to where they can earn rewards. So there's a lot of them that are mission focused. So I'd encourage you to check those guys out too. But the requirements for some other networks are far, far more. Some networks, you have to have tens of millions of dollars of that token to have a chance at earning rewards. Some networks have it so that there's a hard cap right now on the limit of validators that's already been reached long ago, and so there's really no way to get in because it makes it so that the people that started them as early as they could, they basically have taken those slots, and for any new people, it's so difficult to actually start a validator. And that's very centralized, that it's so hard on some networks to start a validator. I've had questions before, well, why don't you run validators on projects, more than just Cardano and Avalanche? Well, it's like I want to, but a lot of the projects don't necessarily make it that easy. And there's a lot of trade-offs between one project and another. Some are more centralized, some are less centralized, some scale easier, some don't scale as easy. But they're all trade-offs. And I think what Cardano is doing, they wanted to make sure they got things right. So rather than rush things out, and obviously because of the path they've taken, they obviously get a lot of criticism for historically missing deadlines and whatnot. But at the same time, they're doing it, I think, in a good way, rather than some chains I see. I'm not mentioning any names, but I feel like a lot of chains, they see a bull market coming, they rush out to get out whatever they need to. They basically copy some bulk part of Ethereum's code, modify it a little bit, market it as like the best thing since sliced bread, and then a year later they realize, oh, there's actually a lot of problems with this that we actually got to figure out. And so then it becomes this thing of, well, ADA doesn't have smart contracts yet, these other projects do. Yeah, that might be the case, and I would agree with you. Like, it'd be really nice if ADA did have smart contracts, and I think they're coming soon enough. At the same time, there are projects that they might have other things that ADA doesn't currently have, but there's a lot of other things they're going to have to get worked out. Okay, a lot of other things. Whether it's the the network, or not the network. Whether it's the issues with the validators, getting people to run their own validators. And by the way, if you can get a system where tons of people are just encouraged to run their own validator, then these people are constantly trying to get people to stake to their validator. And it's just it's like free marketing, right? It's like free marketing. But for networks that limit the number of validators and are very centralized, you don't really get that intrinsic free marketing because you just don't have people that can run validators. And if you don't get that intrinsic marketing, then you're missing out on so many different communities that would have had someone running a validator and saying, hey, come stake here or whatnot, which would probably reduce the selling pressure. I think ADA's done a remarkable job of figuring out how to get this thing running. And I understand that smart contracts aren't here yet. I get it. But again, when you buy ADA, you're not buying what it is today. You're buying what you think it will become. Now, I'm not going to just sit here and say that ADA's, the best thing ever. Again, I own more Ethereum than ADA, and I think there are going to be some things that ADA has to figure out over the next several years in order to efficiently scale. So those things, I believe, are coming up on the horizon. But I do see it carving out a niche in the space, and I think that the manner in which ADA is holding up now during bearish times is testament to the fact that ADA is the way they've set it up is actually performing quite well. And I say that as someone who's running my own stake pool, right? I'm running my own stake pool, and if I saw these numbers just dropping like a rock and going, cutting in half, I'd be like, all right, people are selling their ADA because Bitcoin's bearish. But instead, it just keeps going up more or less. And it's sort of slowed down recently. But again, one of the reasons for that is because we launched the ITC2 stake pool. And you can see that the total number of ADA staked with ITC and ITC2 is a very modest and humble 51 million ADA. So there's 51 million ADA in the stake pools earning interest, okay? And these people, I'm guessing, are just saying, hey, you know what? We're just going to let it sit there. We're not going to capitulate on every sudden drop because we believe on where things are headed. And given where we think Cardano should be headed over the next couple of years, I think it makes sense, right? A lot of people don't want to sell it before everything comes out and we actually get to see, what happens. Obviously, there's going to be some uncertainty there because once smart contracts are out, then you actually get to see, okay, who's building on it, right? Who's actually building on it? And if people aren't building on it, then that could lead to some FUD. Or if people actually are building on it, then that would be kind of like, oh, and I told you so moment. That a lot of people would say, well, see, you claimed we weren't going to have anyone building on it, and here they are, they're building on it. So we have a ways to go. There's obviously going to be things that ADA has to work out, but during this bearish time of the market cycle, I think it's great. I think it's really impressive how strongly ADA is holding up in the current market conditions. And I just wanted to give you guys my perspective on some of the insights that I had as running a validator for ITC. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember to check out the ITC2 stake pool if you want to earn interest on your ADA. We will keep an eye on ADA as we continue to churn more or less sideways. We are below the 20-week right now, holding up relatively well against Ethereum still. Sideways movement during bearish times against Ethereum is actually pretty good. And the ADA Bitcoin valuation has been coming down. I think that's pretty normal. Honestly, I think that's pretty normal. I would be surprised if it didn't come down more, to be completely honest. Given where Bitcoin is, if Bitcoin keeps chopping sideways well below the 20-week, I'd be surprised if it doesn't come back down more. But I'm pretty happy with how ADA has been performing over the last several weeks in the current market conditions. Make sure you guys subscribe, click the bell icon to turn on notifications, check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com if you want to know how I'm navigating these markets, and I'll see you next time. Bye.